Hello. This is the recording of the Fever 1793 accommodated test. Why had Mrs. Ogilvy invited Matilda and her mother to tea? A. Mrs. Ogilvy and Lucille are friends. B. She wants her son Edward to marry Matilda. C. Mrs. Ogilvy and her daughters need a good laugh. D. She was bored because all of her friends had left Philadelphia. Question 2. At the beginning of chapter 8, Mother sent letters to different families with no responses. Matilda was thankful that there was no word from the Luddingtons. Why would Matilda have such a response? A. She could now run off with Nathaniel and go fishing. B. She was not looking forward to attending their party. C. She refused to go to the country to escape the fever. D. She feared her mother sent the letter as a form of punishment. Question 3. The men who stopped the farmer's wagon are A. Highwaymen robbers, B. Assisting the sick, C. Searching for food, D. Checking for yellow fever. Question 4. Why do the church bells ring? A. To signify someone had a baby, B. To signify another person had died, C. To signify someone just got married, D. To signify the start of another church service. Question 5. Matilda starts to think that maybe going to live in the country wouldn't be that bad after all. What prompts her to change her mind? A. She witnesses Colette Ogilvy collapse from the fever. B. Matilda is the sole caretaker of her ill mother for the night. C. Eliza's news she shared with Matilda from the Free African Society meeting. D. The rumors at the printers that several hundred people have died in the city. Question 6. Why does Mother yell at Matilda to leave when she is sick in bed? A. She is embarrassed for Matilda to see her this sick. B. She is worried Matilda might catch the fever from her. C. She is angry at Matilda for not taking good enough care of her. D. She is nervous the family will lose money if Matilda doesn't run the coffee house. Question 7. While stranded on the side of the road, Matilda's grandfather says, "We must form our battle plans, both for this skirmish and for the rest of the war." What does he mean by this? That he and Matilda not only need to A. Find a way home, but also how to get Matilda a good husband. B. Figure out how to get back to her mother, but also find a cure for the yellow fever. C. Create a plan to retrieve their clothes, but also how to increase business at the coffee house. D. Get off the roadside, but also what they will do to survive and get their lives back together. Question 8. How do Matilda and her grandfather end up stranded or left alone? A. The wagon they are traveling in has a broken axle, and no one has the money to make the repair. B. The roads are all closed to reduce the spread of fever. The family they are traveling with decides to head back while Matilda and her grandfather decide to find another way. C. The men on horseback think Matilda's grandfather has yellow fever, so they refuse to let him in the town, so the farmer's family dumps them on the road and goes on without them. D. Two people in the family they are traveling with get yellow fever. Matilda and her grandfather fear for their lives and decide to wait on the road for another wagon. Question 9. What trick does Matilda use to find water for her and her grandfather? A. She uses her skirt and canteen type of cup to collect the rainwater. B. She looks at the bottom of a hill knowing that is where water collects. C. She follows the birds and squirrels knowing they are heading to water. D. She looks for a willow tree knowing water will be nearby. 10. What does Matilda use to try to catch fish? A. A fishing pole she finds by a tree. B. A basket she makes from branches. C. Her grandfather's sword. D. Her skirt. Question 11. After gathering pears, Matilda heads back to feed and care for her grandfather. What happens on the way back? A. Matilda kills a rabbit with grandfather's sword. B. Matilda sees a victim of yellow fever and tries to help him. C. Matilda comes across two men who try to rob her of her food. D. Matilda feels cold all over and passes out. Question 12. Who is Mrs. Flagg? A. The wife of a farmer who takes in Matilda and her grandfather. B, a nurse who is helping Matilda recover or get better from yellow fever. C, a woman Matilda meets who is dying from the yellow fever. D, the wife of a farmer who gives Matilda food and clothing. Question 13. Why is Matilda terrified to be at Bush Hill? A, she has heard it is dangerous. It is a dangerous place full of thieves. B, she is terrified by how dirty the area is and thinks she might get sick. C, she knows if she is there, she will probably die. D, she sees a man get murdered and fears for her own life. 14. The clerk discharges or lets her go, Matilda, since she is once again healthy. Where does he want to send her? A, back to Philadelphia. B, an orphanage or orphan house. C, the Ludington's farm. Or D, to train to become a nurse. Question 15. What do Matilda and her grandfather discover when they enter the coffee house for the first time upon their return? A, the coffee house is a mess from a recent robbery. B, they find a note Eliza left informing them Matilda's mother had passed away. C, the coffee house is thriving with doctors and nurses on break from treating victims. D, they find a note from Matilda's mother telling them she went to the Ludington's farm. 16. What is Matilda relieved or happy to find hidden under a stair? A, her cat Silas. B, the painting Nathaniel sent to her before she left. C, a strong box where money was hidden. D, extra preserves that Eliza had stored for an emergency. Question 17. How often does Matilda usually bathe? A, once a day. B, once a week. C, once a month. D, once a year. 18. Who is Nell? A, a poor woman who has just lost 3 of her children to the fever. B, a little girl Matilda finds crying next to her dead mother. C, a woman sick with a fever who reminds Matilda of her mother. D, a small dog that seems to have a broken leg. Question 19. What does Matilda learn about her mother from Eliza? A, her mother recovered from the fever and headed to the farm. B, her mother recovered from the fever and is helping care for fever victims. C, her mother had trouble recovering and was sent to Bush Hill. D, her mother did not recover and passed away. Question 20. Who is hidden behind the shutters in the house Matilda and Eliza pass on their way home? A, Nathaniel Benson. B, Colette Ogilvie. C, Mrs. Flagg. D, Dr. Rush. Question 21. Once William, Robert, and Nell come down with yellow fever, Matilda suggests that Eliza take them to Bush Hill. Eliza refuses, which means she will not. Where does Matilda suggest instead? A, the coffee house. B, the Ludington's farm. C, a hospital like Bush Hill but closer. Or D, the Ogilvie mansion. Question 22. Nathaniel stayed locked in a house with his employer, Mr. Peel, during the plague. Since they never left or let anyone enter, how did they survive with the food shortage? A, Mr. Peel had such a thriving garden the family could eat the vegetables for several months. B, Mr. Peel had live chickens and horses in his parlor. He killed them when the family needed more meat. C, Mr. Peel collected and stuffed exotic animals. He saved the meat from the animals before he stuffed them, so the family ate odd animals like possums. D, Mr. Peel dug an underground tunnel. He hired farmers to smuggle food to him through the tunnel. Question 23. Why hasn't Matilda received a letter from her mother? A, her mother is dead. B, her mother cannot write and therefore cannot send a letter. C, the post office is closed. D, Eliza is secretly stealing her mail. Question 24. People have been returning to Philadelphia and the town is coming alive once again. What event sparks a massive return to the city for all the remaining people in the country? A, when the market reopens, that is a sign that the fever is over and people are safe to return to the city. B, when President George Washington returns to the city, all the remaining people in the country know it must be safe to return to. C, when there is a town meeting called, everyone knows it is safe to return from the country. D, when the first heavy snowfall comes at Christmas, people know the fever is gone. Question 25. What is the best summary of fever 1793? A, the city of Philadelphia is plagued with yellow fever in 1793. Matilda and her mother both contract the fever and they are quarantined. Matilda's grandfather dies and they have to keep the robbers away. Matilda grows up and learns to survive on her own. B. The yellow fever plagues Philadelphia. When Matilda and her grandfather leave and return to their coffee house and home, it has been robbed. They survive by scrounging for food and defending what is theirs. Matilda's grandfather dies and she finds her mother. C. Matilda runs a coffee house with her family. She is a stubborn girl who doesn't enjoy getting out of bed. After their serving girl dies from the yellow fever, there is panic across the city. Mother also gets the fever and instructs Matilda to leave with her grandfather. Matilda and her grandfather set out on a dangerous journey. D. Matilda lives with her family in Philadelphia until yellow fever plagues the city. Her mother gets the fever and she and her grandfather leave town. After Matilda gets the fever and becomes well again, they return home. Surviving and finding her mother are Matilda's concerns. As she matures, Matilda builds a new life in Philadelphia. Remember, for your summary question, you're using CPR, character problem resolution. Make sure you find them in each answer choice, or maybe they're not there, before you choose one. Good luck. Look back in your book, use your strategies, take your time.